Let the dragon consume you! Enemy sighted. Stop the payload! Stop the payload! In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Birdwatcher's back at it one more time. Here's your host, Ryan and Clay. They're about to bring you some sweet, sweet Overwatch action.
All right, we are back, and for some reason, episode 41 doesn't have the same ring to it as episode 40. Have you thought about that, Ryan?
It doesn't, but we're coming up on 50, right? So that's gonna make up for it.
Man, that's old.
That's old? Yeah, man.
You thought about like your parents when they were 50. You're like, man, 1 foot in the grave. That's how I thought about it.
Well, I mean, technically that's the middle. That's where middle life crisis should happen.
Yeah.
Or midlife crisis.
Yeah. Is it weird that I'm having mine now?
Yeah, man. Were you shooting for 60?
Now that you mention it, yeah. But yeah, we are an Overwatch podcast, as many of you know, and we're doing a special. We kind of got our schedules mixed up, so we're doing all Atlanta all the time this episode.
Yeah, life happened. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover week 3 and 4, all things Atlanta.
Wait, life happened, or you fell asleep and did not get on to podcast? I mean. Yeah, life happened sounds like you got in a car wreck. Something came up. Your wife, she was having the baby right then.
Don't show them how the sausage is made. Let's just.
All right, fair enough. Life happened, and so we're coming back at you with the Atlanta episode.
Yeah, for these 2 weeks, and then we'll be back on our normal schedule.
Absolutely.
So to start out, as we always do with news, so we have 2 watch parties coming up. Essentially, we have back-to-back games. This is the last games in week 5 before we move to see who's in the stage playoffs. And we have 2 watch parties. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys about those ones. So for the March 16th game, so that's Saturday, it's Reign versus Hunters. And we're actually going to be trying out a new venue. So currently we've been doing Battle and Brew for mostly all the events. That's kind of our home field here in Atlanta. And for this one on Saturday, we're going to try New Realm Brewing. So we've been, partnering with them to give this a shot and see how it works out. It's a nice venue. All ages are welcomed. The game starts at 7 o'clock. So if you can make it out to that one, swing over to the Atlanta Reign or the ATL Royal Family account. They have the meetup page all set up. You can find that on Twitter, on Meetup, and then you can keep track of it that way. And then following that, so the Sunday, which I think is St. Paddy's Day, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so if you're not celebrating St. Paddy's Day, come watch us beat the Outlaws, because that's the plan. So we're going to be playing the Outlaws, and that one's going to be on the 17th at Battle and Brew, so home field, and that one will start at 5:30. And with Battle and Brew, it's pretty much all ages. If you're under 18, you have to have a guardian. If you have to have either a guardian that's 21 or older, or a friend or family member that's 25 or older. And they can stay until 11 p.m. So those are the 2 events coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, man. And now we get to talk about this massive, giant, looming patch.
Yeah, had a big patch hit the PTR, and with that patch we got Hero 30.
How do you say it? Go ahead.
Batiste is how Jeff Kaplan pronounces it, but you go to every other streamer who's been practicing, everybody pronounces something different. We're going with Batiste. That's what his creator called him, so we're just going to stick with that. This is, like I said, this is Hero 30. He is a battle-hardened combat medic is how Blizzard describes him. He's got some pretty cool abilities, one being an invulnerability thing he's got going on for like a split second. He kind of like Anna, he heals and damages. We'll see. They're tweaking the numbers as we speak on the PTR, which is great because obviously we don't want something to come out like Brig and it's really good and then they nerf it 10 times in a row.
Never again, right?
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, with Batiste, we got, like Ryan mentioned, a big PTR patch update. And there's been two. There's been one that's kind of changed the first one a little bit. So I'm just going to go over the big one first. And then as we get the changes that come through, we'll talk about those when it hits live. So general updates, a beam type damage is now reduced by 20% when hitting armor, and then damage over time effects are no longer mitigated by armor, which will probably change how Goats works a little bit because obviously that relies on a lot of the Zarya and then the armor penetration, just doing a lot of damage just with
Ash will
Zarya.
be more effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dynamite.
Knockback distance is now more consistent. Heroes that are flying can now be knocked back and slowed as well. So Pharah, who else flies? Diva flies, and then I guess Mercy flies, and Valkyrie, and then
There's been plenty of meme videos out there about that.
Oh, really?
The stuff you can pull off. Yeah, where you use Lucio's speed boost.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Diva can essentially take off. So people were trying to see like how far they can throw bombs on King's Row and stuff like that. It's
Just
pretty interesting.
Across the entire map. That's
Exactly.
cool. I could imagine what is Junkertown, where it's all open at the front.
Oh,
you
dude,
just like toss that thing over everyone,
It's gonna
all
be
the
insane.
buildings.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. But hero updates, Nano Boost, heal reduced from 300 to 250. Not a big update, but I guess if you have a big tank, something like that, it'll be a little bit noticeable. Doomfist had some changes. His cooldowns are reduced. The Rising Uppercut and the Seismic Slam from 7 to 6 seconds, just making him feel a little bit more fluid. Sonic Arrow detection radius increased from 7 to 9 meters, kind of getting back to where we were before, right? Because his radius was bigger, but a longer cooldown, and now it's getting a little bit bigger. So yeah, Lucio Sound Amplifier, it now counts towards offensive assist. So
Good.
You'll get to see it in the kill feed there, which is cool. McCree,
This
the
one.
Hammer, yeah, reduced again. Just back and forth with the old McCree.
Yeah.
And then Deadeye increased from 275 to 550 after locking on a target at 2.5 seconds. So this could be. Yeah,
That's
you
a
gotta
lot
hide.
of damage. Yeah, there's
That is a lot of
no
damage.
poking. There's no trying to eat this. There's no point. Just put his shield up or hide somewhere.
Yeah. This may change. This is the kind of changes I like. You buff something, but you nerf something as well. Primary fire increased from 2.25 seconds to 2.75, so overall damage increase, and then the health over wall reduced from 500 to 400, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Give and take there. More heal over time, duration from 3 to 4 seconds, total healing 50 to 65, so just more healing for there. Man, there are a ton of updates. I did not realize
So I think
how
they came
many
out.
there were.
I think they came out and touched 19 characters.
Yeah, I
30,
read this
yeah.
all before. I was like, oh, okay, a little bit here and there. No, they changed everyone. Fusion driver for Orisa, penalty while firing reduced from 50% to 30% the movement speed. Farah's rocket launcher explosion damage increased from 16 to 20. So it's back to what it was. Soldier 76. I didn't think this was very big until Siegel explained it on his stream. His damage increased from 19 to 20, which is essentially if you hit all those bullets, it is one less you have to actually hit to kill somebody. So a little bit more damage that he's going to be able to put out too. So maybe that brings him back into the meta a little bit. He can now target Riptire or Immortality Field. I don't like that. Riptire,
Yeah.
it needs to be faster. It needs to fly. Whatever you can do to buff Junkrat at this point. The hack for Sombra reduced by half when hacking a health pack. Torbjorn, it gets a health increase from 50 to 250.
Get the Fran
health.
buff.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, Soldier and Tor both getting a little love on this one. Widowmaker's Infrasight reveals enemy health bars and cancels on death, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yes, this makes the most sense.
Yeah, I like that. Again, give and take. Wrecking Ball no longer cancels roll mode, and then we got a ton of bug fixes. We're not going to go through all those because we get a bunch of those all the time. And like I said, there are still more patches that have hit the PTR since. This is just the big overall patch that hit it, along with Paris going live on the main server.
Yeah. So. And, so all that being said, what do you think about Batiste so far? Like, how do you like him?
He looks cool.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he's a first-person shooter character. Mm-hmm. He does both. I like that a lot. I want to see where the skill cap is with something like him. A lot of people are complaining about invulnerability as far as how that works. I mean, keeping up tanks is a big thing, especially right now. We'll just have to see. I mean, it's weird because no one played Brig on the PTR, no one played Brig on live, and then when it hits comp, that's when people start complaining. This is something that people need to we need to start jamming him now, and we can figure out where he sits, because obviously get on the PTR, play the guy, and then, offer your complaints then.
Exactly. And, for me, being a support player, maining Ana, it's one of those things where when Ana came out for Overwatch, it was almost like a revolutionary type character, right? The fact that you shoot your teammates to do damage, and that you had the grenade, which is the aerial effect that you had to land, so you can splash and hit your... Like, that was real cool. And maybe I'm being too, going too far by saying revolutionary, because I remember there was a game called Terra that came out, which was an MMO role playing, right? And it was action based, so the healers in that MMO actually had to aim where they wanted to throw their heals and target the people they wanted to heal, which people loved it for that. So to see that brought into this genre was great, and the fact that they're going further with that, with Batiste, is real cool, because you have that splash damage and stuff like that. And so I'm happy they're going in this direction. Obviously, they're trying to avoid the Brig trap.
Yep.
So it never happens again, and they also want to stay away from the Mercy trap that they landed in. I mean, you live and you learn, right? So excited to see what this patch does when it hits live. But that being said, let's go ahead and hop into standings. So what we're going to do for this, we're not going to tell you the scores of the recent games, since we're covering 2 weeks here in this special. We're just going to go ahead and tell you what standings are at the moment as people try to get into stage playoffs, because there's only one more week left until that's decided finally. So we have, in first place, we have New York Excelsior at 7-0. We have second place being Vancouver Titans at 5-0. We have Toronto Defiant at 5-2. That's a shocker. You want to talk about a team that just had some growth out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
That's them definitely becoming more solid when it comes to communication. Philadelphia Fusion 4-2. They've been kind of hit or miss, but they're still up there. Dallas Fuel 4-2. That was something the way they started out, looked like they were struggling. It's cool to see them up there. Atlanta Reign, I'm going to leave that one blank, because we're going to talk about how we got to where we got to. But we are currently still in the top 8. London Spitfire at 3-2 for a team that's been struggling heavily. Thankfully for their schedule and their opponents, kind of kept them in the running here. And then San Francisco Shock at 3-3. That team just has a bunch of ballers on it, but I think they're still trying to figure out the mix there. So sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of this does have to do with, like you brought up, who they got to play in the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
Because, like you had mentioned, Dallas Fuel does look better than they did last year, but they played Shanghai 2 times in a row. And I'm not taking anything against Shanghai. They look a lot better than they did last year as well.
Yeah.
But, strength of schedule has a huge impact on who makes it into the playoffs, who does well in the first couple weeks. That's why we have all these stages. Obviously, we get to kind of weed out, the top teams or the worst teams just by everybody getting to play everybody.
Exactly. And that being said, the next 3 spots, so 9th through 11th, you have Charge, Dynasty, and Outlaws kind of at 3-3, fighting to, take one of these spots from these other players or these other teams. So anything can happen in this week. And, for us, we're going to kind of talk about what kind of position we're in as the Atlanta Reign. And, we'll see when we get there in the next episode. But this is where we are for now. So that being said, let's go ahead and let me get started.
You want to talk Paris, Atlanta?
Yeah.
Last week?
Yeah, so
let's
week
do it. 3,
we went we played Paris Eternal.
Yeah, and this one we had talked about. We were both very excited to see what Paris looked like, especially against Atlanta. And no spoilers, this was not something that I expected just overall. I mean, we'll get into each map, obviously, but going into this, what were your thoughts, Ryan? You thought I mean, I thought this was going to be a battle of the semi-titans.
Yeah. The way Eternal has been playing 3-3 has been very dangerous. I came at it from obviously a fan perspective, so I obviously thought Reign is going to win. But how they won was concerning because I remember in Worlds, since a lot of this Paris team consists of the Paris World team from last year, they did this thing where they played amazingly through group stage, got to the top 8, and then choked, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, they were known for their 3 play. So here, it kind of felt like the same situation because they're facing a team that's so unorthodox. At this point, our game tape is damn near useless unless you're a really good analyst / coach, because we played so many different comps on so many different maps, and the breadth of characters we could play is so high that I think it's very difficult for a team that doesn't have much flexibility to try to prepare for. So I thought that was in our favor. So I was definitely on the.
Absolutely.
I didn't know if it was. I went with 3-2 here for my prediction.
Yeah, I was putting at either 3-2 or a 3-1.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into the maps. Starting it off on Ilios map 1. Yeah, this is a little odd for me. The sim coming out.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly what Paris had in mind here, because I couldn't picture I just couldn't picture why this would be really good, because it almost seemed like once even Finzi gets his ult, there's nothing really going on, because he's just constantly getting focused. He just dies so quickly. He just can't even hide behind the Rhine shield. He dies so quickly. This one's at 99 or 100% to 0. I don't know why I would say 99. It obviously goes up there. You just never see it. ATL never leave the point. They're pretty much pushed into that, almost where the spawn is, the giant health pack, and with the help of Massa, this giant boob.
Yeah.
You put double grab. I put the poke post slam. It was giant here. And start off really strong, and then we get into the second map where we get to see Defran play Torb, and
again, consistent.
Yeah, very consistent. And we bring up the tapes because people know Defran is going to play Torb here. Paris do try to focus him, and to their, they're in the wrong because they're getting sucked away by Orisa. They're getting booped away by Lucio. They use so much of their time trying to focus Torb. Atlanta's just kind of running free all over him. I don't know. What did you think about how much time they spent just trying to get Defran off the Torb?
Yeah, it speaks for itself that I think the game plan was wrong here, because I think this map for Atlanta Reign had record numbers as far as environmental kills on one map.
Yeah,
And that was exactly what they were doing. Was they were, as they focus on the right hand, you punch them with the left, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to the end here, we have a stat that the limbs was 46 for Atlanta, 17 for Paris overall.
Yeah.
So they were so focused on one task that they kind of forgot about, hey, you actually have to kill people, kind of thing.
Yeah, even though it does go 99-99, Atlanta looked like they were in control almost the entire time. So Atlanta take Ilios for the first map, and then we go into Hollywood, where this one's a rough one to watch, just because I thought Paris was going to put up a little bit better of a effort or a defense going into Hollywood. We get these control point maps, and a lot of times one of the teams is going to be very dominant in those style maps, and we've seen Atlanta be very good at those. But yeah, obviously we get the clip that was heard around world, where we see Massa Defran go over the roof, which is an amazing play. They actually admit that they saw it on Reddit, where I got to see it before I even saw the results of the match. I was like, oh shit, that's Atlanta. I'm spoiling this for me. And they just kind of ride that momentum all the way through point 3. I think Paris is able to wipe them maybe once, and they just jam through that map. And it's kind of the total opposite when we go into Paris's attack. We see double support ults. They're overlapping them constantly. And Ben Best, I don't know if him and Nico are communicating as much as they should be, because Ben Best is always at half, waiting for a Brig E to hit him, and he's just not ever getting it. It looks like it's either getting mistimed, or it's just not because when you look at Paco, he goes to half, he gets healed right back up because you're saving that for him because that Ryan is your main source of not only protection, but he's putting out damage. Ben Best's just not getting that, and he's always the first one to fall, just not getting enough heals. And they just cannot get past, I think they get maybe halfway through the streets at this point. So...
Yeah,
no, they hold him at 0.2. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things where it felt like it was a gauntlet. Like Paris attack felt like they had twice as much time to try to accomplish their, because they fought so many fights. Atlanta at this point, statistically, is known to force a lot of fights because of how aggressive they are. So it makes the games feel grueling from a viewer aspect because it looks like they're just banging their head against the wall constantly until the time runs out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Atlanta go up 2-0, and then we go to Temple of Anubis, which...
Your favorite map?
It is one of my favorite. I did love Atlanta's defense on this. This is my favorite composition, and it has been since the first season. But we'll get to that, obviously. We get to see Paris play Bastion. Obviously, they want to set up on that middle ground, and it is working for a little while. Atlanta stacks some ults. They do a bunch of eco pushes. They land on the Bastion. They pretty much steamroll on the 0.2. Got a lot of time left in the bank, over 4 minutes. And then we get to see Atlanta bring out the Widow, the Junkrat, and Erster. I thought I was a good Junkrat. This dude is so proactive about getting in these people's faces because you'll see people try to sneak over to the left where it's the left. If you're on attack on Anubis, they'll try to sneak into that little thing. And he's running up behind him. Like, that's something that you will not see even on ladder where people are doing whatever the hell they want. He's just actively going after the whole time, and they can't do anything. That, and he lands a big tire at the very beginning, and then he lands a big tire from spawn where he's the first one killed, but he has tire, brings it back, and they
he
hold
talks
0.1.
about. I think he talks about that play, by the way, and he says he died on purpose. I don't know how. So he could get back to spawn and then do the tire from essentially being concealed, kind of like a false, giving them a false read.
I don't believe that. I think that's what I would say. But I don't know. You could just hide in a cubby.
I know, right? But, exactly. But hey.
Yeah. So we go to our fourth map, which is just for tiebreakers because Atlanta is sealed this one up. Paris, really good hold on 0.1. It's almost a full hold. I think in overtime they get a little sloppy with their ults, and Atlanta is capitalizing on it. And they pretty much use that momentum to take 0.2 and 3 with time in the bank on Route 66, which is pretty difficult because 0.3 is a headache for the offense.
Yeah,
you're just pushing into a wall.
And just a note here: this is something that makes Atlanta Reign unique, is because, and they say flex option, where DeFran can flex to Tracer on those final attempts on certain points, even though that is technically his main. A lot of teams don't have that option. So for someone who's essentially one of the best, if not the best tracer in the world, that's deadly for that final fight for teams to have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Tracer's one of those characters. It's weird. If they start with a Tracer, they've been playing Tracer the entire game. You kind of have that mindset of being protective of your back line and stuff like that. But when you get it out of nowhere, like we saw DeFran coming back on overtime on Tracer, he's kind of running wild on him because you're just not ready for that kind of thing. You haven't prepared for a Tracer to be on your Zenyatta or your Lucio. I want to talk about this attack. It is really good for Paris through 1 and 2. They do jam through it. And then we get this, 2 or 3 minute hold on 0.3 where it's just like, damn, dude, we're not even going to see any more attack for Paris at this point. Rough.
Yeah,
it was rough.
It was rough for them. I mean, it was happy for us because no one predicted a 4-0 against Paris, especially with the momentum they were coming to this game with.
Yeah, I thought this was, and we'll get to our later match, I thought this one was going to be a little bit different than the one we played most recently. I thought this was going to be a battle, like you said, 3-2, but no, 4-0. It's insane.
Yeah, it was impressive. So then we'll hop into our second match we're going to cover, which is not Overwatch League, but it is Contenders. So Atlanta Academy made their debut. They had their first game in the following week 4 that we're going to cover. And one thing to note is that obviously, Dogman's no longer there. This was big news when Dogman went to Atlanta Reign. Everybody's like, well, who's going to take his spot? What candidates are out there? Well, they end up filling his spot with Perfect, which happens to be from one of Clay's favorite teams, Hong Kong Attitude.
That's right.
So yeah, but Perfect is a hit scan player known for his Widow. So that was caused some confusion as what's going to happen. And then they announced, Saucy on Twitter said that he would be switching to flex support, and Perfect will be taking that spot, that DPS spot. So people were kind of worried about how it's going to happen because it was really late in the game too. I think this was the week before they were supposed to play. So nobody knew how much practice they had. Perfect being Korean, playing in the Pacific region, and then coming to NA. There's, obviously going to be some growing pains there. And we get to see that. So we get to play Skyfoxes. So Skyfoxes, this is the first time out of trials, making it into the regular season. And this is after they've culled a lot of their team. They were known for having like a 40-man roster or something crazy like that for the longest, but they got it down to kind of a core 6. And they came out, throwing fire, man, and we're about to get into it. So Lijiang Tower is where we start off. We start off on Command Center, and both teams start with Snotes. Snotes, we've seen this on this map before. ATL gets that initial cap, and this is our first look at Saucy on that flex support. And he's doing pretty well. He's fragging out. Some of his positioning's kind of off, so he does get picked off a couple times. But outside of that, he's playing pretty well. ATL does win this round convincingly, and then we move into Night Market, where ATL once again comes out strong. They get that initial cap, and then once again, we're kind of in this full control. We take the round and we take the map. So it's a great start for this, uncertain situation. But then things have quite the turn as we move into King's Row here. So we start with Skyfoxes on attack, and we have Buds on Sombra. And this becomes the major factor throughout the rest of this narrative. Skyfox push here with not much issue. He has some huge EMPs. It actually takes a while for him to miss one. Like when he EMPs, he's always hitting 6 people or more, the whole team. And the other
or more,
right? 6.
He's actually getting his own team. They're so big.
These huge EMPs, big brain EMPs. Yep. But no, so the other half of the pie is Lastro, who, unfortunately the commentators don't talk, /casters, they don't talk that much about him. He is their Zen player from Stormquake, and he is absurd here. Like he has an uncountable number of Zen transes through streets, like throughout King's Row. I was counting them for a minute and I just gave up because he always had it when they need it, and that becomes a theme throughout. So they're able to cap with 35 seconds. So we do put up some resistance, but we never really find a solution for Bud Sombra. So ATL goes on attack, and we start with Sombra May to try to counter it here with Perfect on Sombra and Sugar Free on May. And, once again, Lastro is on an absolute rampage on defense. They don't mention his name once again, but he's just finishing kills, like enough to where it's causing problems for us. We struggle through streets. Gator has some clutch charges to kind of help us extend our attempt, but we never really get anything going from that point. And Skyfoxes, I was about to say Salesforce for some reason. I don't.
That's a Salesforce. That's a dope name too.
Well, it's a company. It's a company that does like applications, but no. Skyfoxes end up taking this map to make it 1-1. So outside of Buzz and Lastro, Clone Man 16 is also on this team, and he's doing some things on Ryan that you just don't see, like hitting long range fire strikes consistently, an aggression that's just it's annoying. So they have 3 out of the 6 people who are really standing out, but the other 3 are playing well, just as well. So Skyfox make it 1-1. We go to Hanamura. Skyfox are on attack here, and they start with that triple DPS comp we've seen some teams use, where you have the Hammond as your main tank, and you have like Farah, Somber, Tracer. They quick cap point 1, and then they go and they carry that momentum to point 2, and they finish with like 530 something. So this is a problem because once again we still haven't found a solution to Bud Sombra, right? So ATL is able to cap first point after a few fights, but we struggle heavily on point 2 until Saucy gets some good reads on Bud's EMP, and then he's able to trans before he gets EMP, because that was part of the problem, was he kept dying with trans in these situations. We're able to cap, but then in round 2 we attack. We have Saucy swapping to Ana for some reason. I think it's because Gator was getting beat up really quickly. So they're trying to supplement that Zen pressure for the Ana healing ability, but they're unable to break through. And it's just one of the cases where we have Skyfox again on attack, and they do the same triple DPS. We use Dotes to try to get some early game advantage. So they have this gamble where they have the two dive. Well, they have the whole team go to right above the, what is it? It's like a bar. You know when you start on attack, Clay? Like out of the arcade, there's like a bar down there somewhere, and you can go under where the fat pack is. They start on top of that, and their whole plan is that once the triple DPS comp comes out, they'll jump on someone, kill someone, get that ult advantage, right? Get that ult economy in their favor. It works, but there's they have 5+ minutes to do this, so it only works for so long, about half the time, and then Skyfoxes are able to cap and then take the second map here. So now we're at 2-1. We move into Junkertown, and this is an absolute nightmare. He just keeps, like, Buds just keeps doing whatever he wants. I put disrespectful here in the notes because, like, constant 6-man EMPs. I think he misses like 3 people out of the possible 6 anytime he EMPs throughout the whole match, and that's just insane. It's a clear case where, and they win this one handily. We don't get the car much that far, and then on their attack they have like 1 or 2 fights and they win it, so they end up winning 3-1 to a big upset for the second place team from last season. But all this shows is that we don't know how long Perfect has been there. We don't know what the communication is like. We do know that it's a weird situation having a hit scan player brought on in place of a support player when you lost one. That being said, I did notice that when we let Perfect play like Widow, it changed. Like, he was getting enough kills. Like, he was getting kills. He felt more comfortable. It's definitely a comfort zone thing here with the composition and then the communication. And I hope that there's a plan to kind of fix this going forward. And not to take anything from Skyfoxes, because I've never seen them play like this before. This is above and beyond. If they keep playing like this, there's no team that's going to stop them. They'll definitely be in the playoffs if they can keep up this momentum.
Yeah, and I'm sure ATL Academy will get the kinks worked out. Man, and just taking it back to one of the matches I watched last week, when there is a Sombra that is that good at getting EMPs and getting them that quickly. When I was watching Shanghai Dallas on Noombani, and I'm not going to get the name off the top of my head right, but Shanghai had their Sombra was doing this. They were getting EMP every single fight, so he would EMP farm off that EMP, and Dallas had no way to deal with it, or couldn't figure out a way to deal with it. It was so high impact. It's weird because Shanghai only plays Sombra on that one map, and they look so much better than Dallas. So, that being said, if you have a Sombra that you're fighting against, man, it's really good. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
very, very difficult.
Especially if you've been practice tracking Sombras, right? That's something that comes up when you're prepared for it. But when you're not prepared for it, it's like, oh no, here we go. It's kind of like the Tracer situation you mentioned.
Yeah, if you're just not ready for it, man, it really catches you off guard.
So this takes us into our final match for this episode, which is Atlanta Reign versus Gladiators. You know what? I sound super dour, right? Like,
doesn't sound great, Ryan. Doesn't sound great.
I should have came with more energy on that one. All right, let's just hop into it. So we start with Busan. And man, Gladiators do not look like a 1-4 team.
That they do not. What sucks is all week I got friends in California.
Yeah.
Big Gladiators fans giving me hell every day.
Yeah.
I mean, no let up, just all kinds of shit.
One day we'll go up there and we'll beat them up.
Yeah. Hey, we're from the south. I don't know what's cool about us. We're bigger and stronger. I don't know.
Everything's cooked with butter.
Yeah, we have way more pollution. Our immune systems are way better than yours.
Oh man. So Roar here, playing out of his mind. I was actually trying to grab him on fantasy, but someone already has him. He's outplaying Pakpo in. It's not just the rest of the team. He's outplaying him on Rhine. Like, as far as I think he blocks something like at least 75% of his shatters, and some of them are just misses completely. And at this point in this match, Pakpo is the number 1 damaging Rhine. So that being said, is they're kind of playing around that, knowing that he's playing more aggressively, that he's taking more swings, taking more chances, and Roar's actually playing more defensively than he usually plays, and focusing more on the reads rather than just going with emotion kind of thing. It works out on top of Shaz being an absolute monster. We don't have to talk about Shaz. We know, listen, we did a whole year's worth of covering Shaz. All right, the guy can play anything and he plays it well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when going back to watching Paris, where Ben Best was constantly a half, it felt like Popko was in the same boat. Like he was just getting worn down so quickly. And watching past Gladiator games, and the commentators bring this up a lot, they don't act like a unit. They act like kind of individuals with high skill, and that's why they lose a lot of games, because there's a lot of synergy involved in the meta right now. It's not down to big plays. I mean, sometimes it is, but it is more of a grind, just constantly maintaining ults, figuring out what ults your opponent has and has already used, and is especially the Briggy. Popko is worn down after the Briggy over and over, and like you said, he is getting outrhined the entire time. It was rough.
That's a great point, because their team is insane. Right, so you look at
a lot of talent.
This is what I said going into it. Obviously, once again, I was on the rain train because that's my team. But you have players like Roar, you have Decay, you have Void, you have these. You had Sureforce. So that's one thing to state is Sureforce is not starting here. We have Hydration actually in, and then you have one of the best support lines since the beginning of the league. So it's not that Gladiators is a bad team, it's that they were a good team that's playing poorly. And it seems like they fixed that at the wrong time for us, which is in this game. But yeah, so Mecha Base goes to Glads. Sanctuary is the same thing. They continue that momentum. Shaz is just on fire this whole match. And they take Busan. So then that takes us to King's Row, where we get Kodak coming in for Dogman. And I think that's just them trying to, we haven't seen Kodak in a minute. I don't think he played at all during the Paris game. That was probably by design. I don't think he even dressed up to play. But we start with Gladiators on attack. Glads get a quick 0.1 capture, and the cart doesn't seem to stop after that point. Atlanta never is really able to initiate a team fight from this point until about really close to 0.3. We set our feet, and we eat about half the time they had when they got there, but they're still able to cap with 2:30 remaining on attack.
Yeah, this was crazy because Glads did this with using one ultimate the entire time through 0.1 and 2. Yeah, 0.1 just looked like a fluke. A really quick pick off, and then they just steamrolled with that momentum. And then just all throughout the streets, there's so much pressure that they can never catch up to it. And Glads just use a grav. They getting into 0.3 with 5 minutes left. Atlanta did stop them once at least, so and did take a little bit of time off the clock. But yeah, that momentum going through streets was unreal.
Yeah, it was nuts. And then, on attack, Atlanta Reign continues to struggle. There's never a point in this game where we kind of look good or look comfortable. There are little moments where we kind of set our feet for a bit, but at that point, it's too late. So we struggle for 0.1 to start off until overtime, or damn near close to it. We then cap, and then at this point, Void, I think, only died once at this match, which was on our attack. And the limbs right now are at 35-15, Glads Atlanta, and that's a hard deficit to come back from emotionally. And then we finally get to see some momentum, which is halted at 0.3 by this huge 3K setup. It's a Shatter Bomb combo from Roar and Void, and this leads us to being able to cap in overtime. But unfortunately, being able to cap in overtime means we don't get a chance at redemption in the next round. So Glads are the only ones that get a chance. They only have about 2 minutes, like 2:30 something.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. I was just gonna mention that you brought that up, that Roar and Void set this up quite a few times, that Roar is very good at pinpointing when to charge Popko, because Popko tries the same thing a few times because you have to get that Rhine shield out of the way, And he is usually very good about that kind of thing because we do get to see a lot of diva bombs out of Atlanta. But this week it was the Gladiators that were able to do this multiple times. And especially this .3 3K was that at its finest, a shatter, a bomb, and then he was able to charge Pakpo out of the way to set up the whole wipe.
Yeah, and to your point, when Pakpo does it, it's one of those cases where they kind of prepare for it with either Big Goose is kind of a big player here because he's watching for that charge to either know if he needs to drop the beat or if he needs to boop Pakpo so he misses that charge. So they can keep shield. Like they're perfect at reading that throughout this match. But yeah, so in round
Oh, good. I was going to say, you do see him get booped quite a few times. He just misses the charge.
Yeah, and then they just take advantage of it, right? Because now he's out of position. So yeah, in round 2, Glads don't really have much trouble because even though they only have about 2 minutes, they are playing extremely well. So they use that dominance, and now they're up 2-0 already. And this goes by fast watching it live. Did not expect it. We were at a watch party, and everybody was kind of looking around like, oh no, nobody guessed this. Why is this happening?
Is that where when you took your Atlanta Reign jersey off and had the Gladiators? I think you've got the Gladiators.
No, that's when the Gladiators tattoo on your chest.
You're like Superman. You change in the bathroom.
No, I will say, this. We'll get to it in closing comments about how it feels to have this kind of big loss. But yeah, so we move into Anubis. We have Enlear come in, sub in for DeFran, and we have Dogman sub back in for Kodak. And, Gladiators on attack. ATL start with this high ground comp that we showed against Paris, which you liked. And they actually read that. I mean, it's kind of a giveaway at this point because it was literally our last game we did it. And Glads go triple dive tank, which, dive was the solution to high ground comp. But now that you have 3 dive tanks, it makes it a little easier because you have a little more beefy of a setup to get that bastion or to get that get to Orisa and that junk setup and take care of them. And then they swap to dive goats, but they keep the Genji. Now I didn't expect this.
This was unreal. This play was so.
You want to talk about? I'll let you talk about it.
Well, it's been a while since we've seen the POV from a Genji, and I forgot how much fun it is to watch. Because this is some of the scenes are a little stagnant sometimes. We get to see Zenyatta play, which is a lot of fun, and Zarya with high energy is a ton of fun to play. But there is something about watching Genji dash through people, Widow get headshots, and like McCree get headshots. Those are the plays that are so unreal because he uses a blade, forces out trance, and then he pinpoints who is on Mercy at this point? Mercy, who is at almost no
Masa.
HP, Masa on Mercy gets a dash reset and pretty much cuts down Atlanta. All the squishies at this point because the tanks are still on the point. He finishes those guys off as well because they had lost a few people. The Gladiators were down 1 or 2 people. But since he is able to pretty much cut through all the DPS and the healers, the tanks, just can't stand up to it. And it was just unreal. He did this without his blade, builds another blade.
It's nutty because he gets like a 3K chain without blade. Then he gets blade, which means that the respawn pressure you get on a 2CP map, it goes away because he just blades when they start respawning. And then he gets another 3K. It's pretty crazy to watch, and this allows him to finish with like almost 5 minutes remaining, which on Anubis is, and I don't even know how to explain it. It's pretty much a guaranteed win. This takes us to Atlanta Reign on attack, and once again, it's always hard to watch from the start. We struggle again. After a couple fights, we get point 1, but the point 2, if you want to see the embodiment of a team just breaking down communication-wise, this is it. Literally everything they choose to do is at the wrong time. You have bad bombs from Dako. You have bad shatters from Pokpo. You have these rough support ults that are like people could be dead and they just pop trans. And it's just like nobody's on the same page. On top of that, you have Big Goose essentially controlling. Big Goose is kind of like the conductor in an orchestra where he's just kind of making these fights happen because he's controlling our tank line, and Roar is taking complete control of the openness of that to do what he wants. If you notice, he finishes a lot of kills on defense here on point 2. So with them in complete control, they're able to take the map, and that technically is the match at 3-0, which is a huge shocker to everyone involved.
I don't know. Just the fact that they cut through this defense that we saw Paris struggle so much against within 15, 20 seconds. I mean, it's weird because if you kill somebody on that defense, the Temple of Anubis, Junkrat, Widow defense, it is pretty hard to come back from that because you need all the working pieces, but they cut through it so quickly. It looked like Atlanta, they had, Bill Belichick. He's got the playbook. He knows what they're setting up and what they're doing. Obviously, the tapes are out there, but they pinpointed it so quickly that, like, it was unreal. And they just, like I had mentioned before, they just could not get their footing at this point, and it's been like that every single map.
Yeah, so this takes us to Rialto, and this is important for us because with our wins, we've had really good, and even our losses, we've had really good map differentials. So winning this one just adds to that pool, which gives us a better chance for this stage playoffs qualification. We have DeFran subbing back in for Enlair, and Dogman still in. So Gladiators, once again, they're not letting up, right? We almost hold here, so it's almost like we got this last boost to try to get this win out the door. But in overtime, they have this amazing bomb from Void that's just perfectly timed, gets to 2K, pushes them over the edge here, and from that point, they get like a second wind, and they don't stop, and they almost full cap, which they shouldn't have in overtime. So Rain gets on attack, and we struggle. It continues, and we're unable to get anywhere close to capping point. And Gladiators wrap it up 4-0. And once again, no one could have predicted this. And one thing I have to say is I apologize to the Gladiators because my whole argument was, they were in the dumps. They were 1-4. And I always like to talk about game tapes and how hard it is to research a team before you play them. And I figured that the way we've been playing to this point, there's no way that they could pinpoint a weakness or a strategy or counter strategy directly to put them in a good position to win this match. And that's exactly what they did. They made us play their game, and that was something I wasn't expecting. Everybody played extremely well on that team. It was scary to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, it just could have been a case of obviously, you go into the season, you get a couple of losses, the Glads I'm speaking on, and you're just trying to get trying to get everything in working order, get people where they are. Obviously, coordination is a big thing, and for Atlanta, it just seemed almost like a little bit of an off week where nothing was coming together. The only real highlights that I saw that were happening was DeFran would try to save Popko from where Popko would get slammed, and DeFran would throw out this big grab. But it just sometimes it's just not enough because you lose a couple of guys. Even a grab with a little bit of momentum is not going to save you. So there was some key little plays that Atlanta would do that would be a little bit of a light, but it just wasn't enough. You almost need every single piece to wipe teams right now.
Exactly. So that being said, at the watch parties, I wanted to mention that everyone was still kind of in good spirits. It's the first time we had a big loss. I mean, the loss against Philadelphia Fusion wasn't as bad because it was real close. We fought back, but this one was definitely a beating, and it kind of showed us what our low point is, which is great, right? Because now we know how never underestimate any team, no matter what the record is, especially in this meta. But even from the fan standpoint, the first thing everybody was talking about was the upcoming Hunters game. It's everybody wants to come out to that, and we want to see them kind of rise back. Our icon is a phoenix. Come on, it writes itself. Rise from the ashes to be born again, anew, kind of thing. And now that we know what the ash state looks like, we can try to never let that happen again. And the greatest part about it, on Twitter, they're all positive. Dogman's out there grinding. DeFran posted, he said Gladiators are nuts, they're actual insane, and they're going to be back at it, and everybody's on the right page. I know that house, that it's about that environment we always talk about. That house is fully support, and even our fans, we reach out to them and we send them the picture of us still. I think since it was a Thursday game, by the way, we thought we were only going to have 20 or 30 people show up, right? We still had 80 people show up. It's these things are getting nutty. So we're letting them know that we're still coming out in droves. So they know that. So it'll be all right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to take your losses sometimes, and then I wish it would have been a little bit closer, obviously, but like you said, we're just going to come back and we're practicing all the time. It's not like we're L.A. Valiant where we're 0-7.
There's a lot of teams going through harder times. Yeah,
Yeah, have you seen this team? They're making YouTube videos and cooking videos. Why aren't you playing Overwatch?
Custa's makeup video with Zoe. It's like, what are y'all doing?
This dude is playing Apex Legends. I see you, Custa.
Dude, half the season's almost, or a quarter of their season is gone. And let's not get on that. We'll be here forever.
Yeah. We can rake them over the coals every other week.
Yeah. You know, good, best of luck to them. I hope they figure it out, because Gladiators look like they figured it out. So, that being said, as always, like us, subscribe, follow, leave a review anywhere you listen to us. Please, those help. Thanks everyone who's spreading the word about the podcast. We're going to keep doing the do. If you want to reach us at through email, you can reach us at thebirdwatcherspodcast@gmail.com. On Twitter, we're the Bird Watcher, and that's Watcher spelled WATCH3R. On Facebook and YouTube, we're the Bird Watchers, and on Reddit and Instagram, we're the Bird Watchers Podcast. So, that being said, that's episode 41, our Atlanta special. And next episode, we'll be back with your regular scheduled programming. For anybody who, any other teams that felt alienated this episode, we're sorry. We'll be back with other teams as well.
Yep. Hey, think about this though. Episode 40.1. That sounds better.
No.
0.1?
I don't know. That's. No. I think that opens us up for shenanigans down the road.
I'm just saying, episode 40 sounds good, and you just throw 0.1 just on there.
So you never want to leave episode 40, so it's like episode 40.3.
No, we'll go to 42 next time.
40.1 to 42. Yeah. All right, people. I guess that's the end of the show. Thanks as always for listening. We'll catch y'all later.
Adios.
I have destroyed more of your kind than I can count.
You were given those guns to toss them around like trash.
I don't take lessons from you.
Try not to get us killed out there.
I heard there's a nice reward